Hi everyone, there is something really quite scary about taking a shower, and as you run your fingers through your hair you realise that there is a mass of it piling up in your hand, or as you set it aside during shampooing and especially during conditioning, it strikes you that there is a lot of hair piling up. It's normal to worry and to question whether your hair is falling out and for it to be on your mind. But don't worry, we will discuss hair shedding with examples and explanations as to why in the vast majority of cases there is no need to worry. So sit back and enjoy. Hey, my name is Dr. John Palmer from the Hairknowhow channel. We like to talk about all things hair, bringing you interesting information about your hair, the latest tips, guides, know-how, advice and scientific hair talk. Hairknowhow is a scientific public hair consultancy. We scientifically evaluate your hair health and your hair type, and advise you on suitable products to help you achieve the hair health or the look you're reaching for. So check us out at hairknowhow.com. The link is in the description. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on future content. We do try to post weekly, and remember to ask any questions or leave a comment and one of the Hairknowhow team will get back to you. Before we start, you need to know that losing a certain amount of hair throughout each day is entirely normal. It is all part of the hair cycle, with older hairs falling out, normally being replaced by a new hair fibre that grows in place of the old one. This is constantly happening at low levels on your scalp in random locations, so that there are no visible patches. Now, before we start talking about how much hair we are losing per day, there are some things we need to know first. Hair grows out of the skin from small skin organelles called follicles. The follicle is the only part of the skin considered alive and is responsible for synthesizing our hair. Hair fibres are grown in repeated cycles that can last as long as 13 years. Each cycle can be broken down into four main parts: anagen, catagen, telogen and exogen. Exogen is the fibre shedding stage and is its own distinct phase, but it appears to be embedded within the telogen phase. These main phases can be further subdivided, but for the purposes of this video we'll stick to the main phases of the cycle. But in short, hair grows out of the follicle during the anagen phase, which can last between 2 and 7 years. But the hair fibre then stops growing after this time and forms what is termed club hair, which results in the termination of the fibre whilst it is still within the follicle, making it ready to shed. Club hair is formed during the transitional catagen phase that lasts for only a short period of around about 3 weeks. Next is the telogen phase, which is where the follicle prepares for the synthesis of the next anagen fibre, but is also within the telogen phase that you find exogen. And exogen is where the previously produced anagen fibre, now containing the club hair, detaches. This dual phase, this telogen-exogen phase, lasts for approximately 3 months. This detachment phase is now known to be an active process that is caused by distinct changes within the follicle, resulting in relatively weak anchoring and its subsequent detachment. This is like what occurs when children lose their baby teeth, where adult teeth push the old milk teeth out. It's very different, but in appearance it's similar in some ways. At the end of the telogen-exogen phase, the follicle then enters the next anagen phase and the new fibre is produced, starting the cycle all over again. Interestingly, the maximum possible length of hair is mostly governed by the amount of time our hair follicle remains within the anagen part of the follicle cycle, and this can and does vary due to both the environment and of course our genetics. Thanks, Mum and Dad. Now we're going to quickly go over some numbers. Don't be put off, and hopefully this will make some sense. Okay, at any one time, if we was to determine what proportion of our hair follicles were in each phase, we would find that on average approximately 1% of our follicles are in the catagen phase, 6 to 10% of our follicles are in the telogen-exogen phase, with the remaining approximately 90 to 95% of the follicles being in the anagen phase. This has been shown experimentally following a careful study of people's scalps. On average, it has been determined that people have approximately 150 to 200 follicles per centimetre squared. Yes, scientists have actually counted. This equates to about 110,000 follicles in total on our scalp. Okay, a little fact for you. Hair grows at a rate of around 400 microns per day, and that's half a millimetre per day. And there is some scientific evidence that we found in the literature that grey hair grows very slightly faster than pigmented hair. So for example, one study said that grey hair grew at 0.38 millimeters per day, but for pigmented hair, it was 0.35 millimeters per day. So not much of a difference, but it did appear in this one study that grey hair did grow faster than pigmented hair. So that would be your blonde hair, your brown, and your black hair. See the link in the description if you'd like to read more about this. Really super interesting research. An interesting side note for you, when doing research for this video, we came across many websites claiming that the average number of follicles on someone's scalp correlated with their hair colour, but we couldn't find any academic literature to back up this claim. So what we're talking about is, for example, websites that state that redheads have less hair per centimetre squared than, for example, blondes or brunettes. One paper we actually came across in the literature suggested that there was statistically no difference between the density of the fibres on our scalp with hair colour. Our challenge to you is if you can find a genuine, original, peer-reviewed research article on the relationship between hair colour and hair density, please link it below in the comments. The first person to post will win a free Hairknowhow test. If you don't have any luck finding this information out, but you do happen to find something interesting about hair, post that as well. That way we can all learn together and you may just win yourself a test as well. So happy researching. Okay, back to the numbers. So what do we know so far? We have learnt that we have about 110,000 follicles on our scalps, and at any one time between 6 and 10% of them are in the telogen exogen phase. Remember, it is within the telogen exogen phase that we tend to naturally lose our hair fibres, and this works out to be around about 6,600 to 11,000 follicles within this phase on our scalp. Now, this doesn't mean that we're losing around 11,000 fibres in one day. This doesn't happen, as only a small fraction of our follicles shed at any one time. This is essentially because of two main factors. The first being essentially the chance of fibre detachment is spread out over the duration of the telogen exogen phase. And two, because each and every hair follicle is independent from each other from a cycling perspective. So for example, as many follicles will be entering the telogen exogen phase as exiting, and many more will be in the anagen phase. So they're all mixed up across the scalp. If we take the number of fibres within the telogen exogen phase and divide this by the average duration of the phase, which is around 90 days, this results in an approximate, calculated back of the envelope, loss or drop rate of between 73 and 122 fibres per day. Within the scientific literature, it is reported that the drop rate is between 50 and 150 fibres per day, so our calculated estimate is about right. Isn't maths great? 150 fibres might sound a lot, but remember, you have approximately 110,000 fibres on your scalp at any one time, so as a proportion, it's not very many. And for some context, this works out to be around 0.3% at a maximum that we are losing per day, which is not a lot. So what does this look like? We promised you some examples of the amount of hair that we have lost whilst taking showers, especially during the conditioning part of taking a shower. Now this does look like a lot of hair, and we certainly thought so, but as a rule of thumb, the longer your hair, the greater it will look, and I am currently growing my hair, as some of you would have probably noticed. But also it's worth considering that the amount of hair you collect in the shower is also subject to many variables, and these are worth thinking about, so we're going to go over a couple right now, just to put your mind at ease. The longer the gap between showering, the more hair you will collect in your hand. Then this is because not every hair fibre that detaches from your follicle will be deposited on your pillow or spontaneously blow away in the wind. Much of your hair, once it detaches from your follicle, ends up being caught up in your hair that is still, attached to your head and still in the anagen phase. And so that when you shower, and especially when you condition, you can end up with really quite a lot of hair coming off all in one go. But this isn't hair that has spontaneously detached at that moment. It's hair that's been as detached and has been accumulating and sort of still wedged in your hair, and so it can appear to be more than it perhaps is. One variable that can actually decrease the amount of hair that you collect when you shower, for example, is vigorous exercise, and this is the inverse of seemingly not washing your hair as much, because when you're exercising vigorously, for example, if you go for a run outside or indeed you're swimming, those fibres that detach during the exogen phase blow away in the wind or get lost in the swimming pool. And so when you come to condition your hair, there will be less fibres in your hand. And so the reverse can also be true. Remember, fibre detachment is not increasing with exercise, but more fibres are actually just being lost, if you like. This is the end of our short video on this topic, but we hope this has gone some way in both showing you example and by calculating the drop rate, that in the vast majority of cases, the hair that you find in your hand when you're conditioning or on your pillow in the morning is nothing to worry about. Of course, if you are worried about, a noticeably increase in your fibre drop rate, then you should visit your GP or your local hair clinic for advice. Remember to check out our website hairknowhow.com if you would like more details on caring for your hair, or if you're interested in getting your hair health or your hair type assessed. In the future, we will make a video and talk further about the hair follicle cycle and what can go wrong, so keep an eye out for that one. Remember to like and subscribe, hit the notification button and leave a comment so you don't miss out on future content. Take care of yourselves and your hair, and we'll see you in a future video. Bye for now.